Well, thank you very much for that. We had a really productive session, and obviously I'm not going to be able to outline everything that was said in those two workshops. But the broad consensus was that the objectives of the current Act are actually quite good. They might need updating, but they're quite good. The big picture item that came across quite strongly from every group that we discussed it with was that there needed to be long-term strategic planning and a hierarchy within that, so that every level of decision making is informed by that high-level strategic planning. So there needs to be statewide planning, regional planning, local planning, and that hierarchy is clear, understandable, and that each integrates with the other. It was mentioned that that some principles that might be considered would be that ecologically sustainable development be an overarching principle, and that perhaps needs to be defined, and it would in fact mean that some of the principles that are in the Act at the moment can be brought under that one umbrella, and that might include heritage, it might include all sorts of things that are at the moment separate items. Another thing that came up quite strongly from the last group was that the purpose of planning is to create livable environments and sustainable environments, which are sustainable both ecologically and economically. The public interest was something that people saw as being important, and public participation in the entire process. There was broad agreement that that was vital for confidence in the whole system. The more that people know about a system, the more confidence they have in it. The more informed they are, the less fear they have of it. So that was generally accepted, so that the continuation of that principle that the public should be involved at each stage, including at SEPP or their equivalent, was important. It was recognised that there is always going to be a tension between the precautionary principle and innovation, though everybody seemed to agree that sustainability was vital. In terms of decision making, there was some support for councils, IHAPs, JARPs, and it was recognised that there should be separation of different processes for different classes of development. Some things that were pointed out that didn't work at present was that lack of proper long-term strategic planning. So we needed a genuine commitment to broader long-term planning, and the Act should deliver that plan. And there was, at the moment, there was a definite consensus that there seemed to be a lack of certainty for developers, and there was a perception too that there's obviously the cost of litigation in the Land and Environment Court was prohibitive, so that was a factor, but I think it was accepted that ultimately the court would be the appropriate model for ultimate decisions. A question was asked whether the shortcomings are actually to do with the Act, or whether in fact they're actually a failure of the administration process. So a lot of that was related to the fact that really people were fairly happy with the objectives and the underlying philosophy behind the 1979 Act. So I think we've probably covered everything that we can in the time available. So thank you all.